Welcome to Management 501 Digital Investments. We're going to be talking a lot about investments, but before we do that, let me give you some of my background because I think the instructor, you need to identify with them to see where they're coming from as to how they're going to teach and what the different aspects will have of the course. I've been a chief business officer. I have a really strong financial background. I'm actually trained as a financial analyst. I had a budget anywhere from 52 million to 811 million. I've handled the legal affairs of 2 different college districts. Sometimes I would have anywhere from 8 to 10 different attorneys on different projects working in a month. I've also been a chief human resource officer. My major focus has always been negotiations and conflict resolution. And you know what? I'm originally a community college graduate. I think it's a great launching point, and your being here shows a couple things about your decision-making process. You made a wise choice financially. We're not as expensive as a university. Hopefully, you're going to go on and do something more than just this. Maybe continue something, maybe pursue the applying the knowledge here in the investment field. I don't know what your plans are, but overall, you're starting out in a really good aspect because you have a small class size. It's local. It's right down the street here in Orange County. So that being said, my background, I'm also a graduate from a community college, Macomb Community College. I have a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. I have an MBA from Oakland University and a PhD in a thing called Organizational Behavior from a small college in the Cincinnati, Ohio area. That's kind of my academic background. When I first graduated from Wayne State University, I took a job as a retail store manager. I think it was a great experience. It was tough. I went from sitting around being a full-time student to all of a sudden working 55 to 60, sometimes 65 hours a week. Your brain goes numb, your feet go numb, your back end goes numb. Everything goes numb because you're working so hard and the world fuzzes around you. You have to make 10 to 12 decisions every single hour, and any bad decision, it could end up, somebody may call the corporate president on you. So that being said, that was a great experience. From there, I have a knack for organizing. So I was asked actually to be a principal of a small Christian school. And frankly, that was probably one of the funnest jobs I've ever had. The pay was awful. The benefits were terrible. There's no pension plan. It sure was a lot of fun though in the process. From there, I went over to become a general manager of a giant housing cooperative that had 87 buildings. We actually owned 17% of the entire city of called Centerline, Michigan. It's huge, complex. I got to learn community relations. I had to work well with all the different politicians in the area that we interacted with. And from there, eventually, I ended up moving over to the education world as a facilities manager. I was back involved with that, but I was a different aspect. I was the facilities transportation manager, and that was a very interesting job, especially house supervision. And you'll see some of that coming across in the process, but you'll see also my roots actually go way back to being a general manager at Kramer Homes, because part of my job was being a financial investor there with a portfolio that we had primarily of all the security deposits, plus on this giant waiting list of several hundred people putting $3,000 down just to be on the waiting list. So with that, facilities manager at Fitzgerald. Then I became a financial person as the director of campus services at Oakland Community College, where I was really part of the largest community college district in the state of Michigan. And I was in charge of the largest campus of the 5, and really was a technology campus. So I was the financial person there. And from there, I actually worked with the vice chancellor to eliminate my job. Okay. And so I became director of operations for the entire district. Incredibly, what happened was I eliminated my job. I created another job. And guess what? It paid more. What a coincidence. And I got the job with that over there. So then I came over here to California as the vice president of human resources at College of the Desert. And from there, I got another job here at South Orange as the vice chancellor of human resources. And then I asked the board to come and become a professor of business at IBC. That's kind of my background from really my whole career pathway as to how I ended up over here. You'll see me referring to a couple things. For fun, okay, I've written lots of different articles, done a couple hundred presentations, probably of all the different books I wrote, Backboneology, Tough Decisions at Work. It's available almost anywhere you go online. By the way, it's a digital copy too as well. Okay, then a couple poem books, Naked Turtle Dances, Zombie Dearest, and Vietnamese American Pride. I'm also a playwright. Actually, my first musical comedy was called Zombie Dearest. and it premiered here at IVC. I've written multiple different screenplays and about 5 different stage plays in different processes. So that being said, growing up, we had a business household. My father was a quasi day trader. So he always was buying things, and some of the stuff was just harebrained craziness. But the day traders, if you look at what they do, for the most part, probably the best book on day trading ever is called Day Trading for Dummies. It's fit me pretty good. So that being said, that whole aspect of day trading, you roll in with no assets in the morning, you sit down there, you go crazy for X number of hours. At the end of the day, you liquidate everything. That really is a true day trader. Now, my father was not a day trader in that definition, but he really was dabbling on a daily basis. And you have to do that if you're going to play the game of stocks, especially with the options and different aspects there. So somewhat knowledgeable on crypto and investments. I took a class at MIT on crypto. Gary Gensler was actually one of the 2 faculty members there. Gary Gensler is the current chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission as of this recording for that. I am not a licensed broker. Do not think I will provide you advice on investments other than basic knowledges. Did you hear what I said? My advice is not being a licensed broker. I'm giving you basic knowledge. If you want to pursue that, you get somebody who does have those credentials in the process. By the way, if stockbrokers are so smart, why do they still sell stock? I mean, I always kind of wondered, if I'm a genius in buying stock for you and everything else, you'll make millions off of me. Well, how much do you have? Well, I got $300,000 in the bank account. Wait a minute. If you're really that smart, shouldn't you sit down? Anyway, so that's always been a question I have. Emerging business topics, we have 3 of them. Okay, the hottest topics raised in classes I've taught as well as online: digital investments, which is this class, cryptocurrency, and really the aspect of cybersecurity defense. These are the hottest topics. We decided to create a certificate of achievement for it. So that being said, here's the classes by the time we were all done. The certificate's called Cryptocurrency, Digital Transactions, and Cyber Defense. Management 500 is Cryptocurrency and Blockchain. 501 is Digital Investments, which is this class. And then 502 or SIM 502 is Cyber Defense Essentials. You know what? These classes, they're all non-credit. They're kind of fun classes by the time you're all done, but it also might be something that would interest you in the process to pursue. So certificate achievement, take these 3 classes, you'll earn one. By the time you're all done, they're non-credit. They're practical, hands-on applications, and they're really designed for the average person. Somebody without a business-focused background can easily take this and hopefully understand it. You know what? Here's a quote I have on my iPad that I see every day. If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you'll work until the day you die. You know what? That's from Warren Buffett said that. And by the way, 1 share of stock at the time of this recording is $548,000. Actually more than that, and who knows what it's going to be tomorrow. I was teaching something similar to this in the previous 6 months ago. The stock was $454,000 and it went up $100,000. So that being said, Warren Buffett, he has got to be the smartest man I've ever heard of in the possible of investing. So I pay attention to a lot what he says. Expect to see more of these segments on a regular basis. Okay, I developed these really in the aspect that we call asynchronous classics. Okay, so you'll see a segment like what you have right here. I call this a pod class. That's how I teach the asynchronous. By asynchronous, synchronous means everybody meets at the same time. When you put an A in front of a word, a lot of times the A comes from the Greek alphabet, which means non or not. So this is not synchronous. So you get to take this class whenever you want. What you're going to see in these pod classes, not a pod class, a podcast, but a pod class, you'll hear more about them later when I deal with the details. So that being said, if you want to get a hold of me, here's my contact information. By far, the best way of doing that is my email address over here. I have different office hours. You'll see them. It just depends what they're. The best way, though, is always something online. So that being said, I look forward to seeing you, really, well, maybe not quite, but virtually at least in the days to come as you hit the pod classes that we have throughout the entire rest of the semester. Take care.